You brought a knife to an energy weapon fight? The Vexthalian guard's metallic voice modulator couldn't fully mask his derision. And they say humans aren't entertaining. Captain Maya Rodriguez kept her expression neutral as she studied the towering crystalline being before her. The guard's transparent body refracted the harsh lighting of the Imperial Palace's audience chamber, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the polished obsidian floor. She didn't bother correcting him about the katana strapped to her back. Some battles weren't worth fighting. I brought what I needed, she replied simply, shifting her weight to better distribute the familiar pressure of her armor's gravitational compensators. The other 5 members of the Emperor's elite guard formed a loose semicircle around her, their crystalline bodies humming with barely contained energy. The lead guard, Maya had mentally dubbed him Rainbow Dash because sometimes you had to find humor where you could, let out a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. The Emperor's time is precious. We cannot allow some primitive mongrel species to waste it with their quaint traditions and ceremonial weapons. Maya smiled then, the kind of smile that had made hardened mercenaries reach for their sidearms. Funny you should mention waste. I count 6 of you taking time to mock one primitive mongrel instead of doing your jobs. I'd hate to have to explain that to his Imperial Radiance. The temperature in the chamber dropped several degrees as the guards' crystalline bodies tensed. Their natural bioluminescence shifted from a calm blue to an angry red. Maya had struck a nerve. Vexthalians were notorious for their obsession with efficiency and proper protocol. You dare! Rainbow Dash began, but Maya cut him off with a wave of her hand. I dare quite a lot, actually. It's kind of our thing. Now, are we going to stand here trading insults like teenagers at a space mall, or can I deliver my message to the Emperor? Another guard, this one with a more violet tinge to their crystalline form, stepped forward. The human must be scanned for weapons first. Maya spread her arms. Knock yourselves out, though I should warn you. Last time someone tried to scan me, their equipment started playing something called Never Gonna Give You Up on repeat. We still haven't figured out how that happened. She paused thoughtfully. The tune was pretty catchy, though. The guards exchanged looks that somehow managed to be both confused and suspicious, despite their lack of conventional facial features. The scanner they produced looked like a cross between a tuning fork and a Tesla coil, humming with exotic energies as they passed it over her body. The blade, Rainbow Dash demanded. Remove it. Maya shook her head. No can do, Sparkles. Diplomatic immunity and all that. Article 7, Section 3 of the Galactic Concordat. Representatives may retain cultural artifacts of significance during official audiences. I've got the paperwork right here. She patted a pocket of her armor. All 47 pages signed in triplicate, notarized by a Class 5 AI, and translated into 15 different languages including interpretive dance. The guard's collective hum rose in pitch, a sure sign of increasing agitation. Maya had to admit, she was having more fun than she probably should have been. But really, they'd started it with the whole primitive mongrel business. This is unprecedented, Rainbow Dash declared. No armed representative has ever been allowed to approach the Emperor? Maya finished. Funny thing about unprecedented situations. They tend to happen a lot around humans. We're kind of specialists in breaking precedent. Just ask the Rigelian hegemony about the time we convinced their battle computers to unionize. Before the guards could respond, a new voice filled the chamber. Deep, resonant, and somehow both ancient and timeless. Let her pass. The guards froze, their crystalline bodies catching the light like statues carved from living diamond. Then, moving with the precise synchronization that had made them legendary throughout the galaxy, they parted to reveal the far end of the chamber. The Galactic Emperor's throne was a masterpiece of engineering and art, a floating platform of pure energy contained within a lattice of rare metals that hadn't even been discovered on Earth yet. Upon it sat was probably the wrong word. The Emperor's form seemed to both occupy and transcend space itself, a being of pure light and geometry that hurt the eyes if you looked at it directly. Maya walked forward, her boots clicking against the obsidian floor in a steady rhythm. The katana on her back felt heavier with each step, but not because of its physical weight. What she carried was the weight of responsibility, of trust, of a plan so audacious it bordered on insane. Which again was kind of humanity's specialty. Your Imperial Radiance, Maya said, dropping to one knee when she reached the prescribed distance from the throne. I bring greetings from Earth and the United Human Systems. The Emperor's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Rise, Captain Rodriguez. You have traveled far to reach us, and I sense you carry more than just that interesting blade upon your back. Maya stood, fighting the urge to smile. Finally, someone who recognized a katana when they saw one. You're right, Your Radiance. I carry a warning. The guards tensed again, their crystalline bodies humming with barely contained energy. Maya ignored them, focusing on the geometric pattern of light that represented the most powerful being in known space. 3 days ago, she continued, our long-range sensors detected a quantum anomaly in the Carina arm. Our analysts confirmed it matches the signature of a void hive emergence event. The temperature in the chamber plummeted. Even the guards' aggressive humming ceased, replaced by a silence so profound it seemed to have physical weight. The Emperor's form shifted, patterns of light reorganizing themselves into new configurations. The void hive is a myth, Captain. A story told to frighten young species into compliance with Imperial law. Maya reached into another pocket of her armor and withdrew a small holoprojector. Permission to present evidence, Your Radiance. A gesture that might have been a nod from the geometry of light. Maya activated the projector. Above it, a 3-dimensional image sprang to life. A massive structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Its surface covered in patterns that hurt the mind to look at directly. Around it, space itself appeared to be unraveling. This image was taken 18 hours ago, Maya said. The structure is now twice this size and growing exponentially. Our calculations suggest it will reach Imperial Center within 2 standard weeks. One of the guards, not Rainbow Dash this time, made a sound like breaking glass. Impossible! Our defense networks would have detected— Your defense networks, Maya interrupted, are calibrated to detect normal space phenomena and known weapon signatures. The Void Hive doesn't play by those rules. They exist partially outside our universe, which is why only quantum-enhanced sensors can spot them. Sensors like the ones we developed after our first encounter with them 300 years ago. The Emperor's form pulsed with new patterns. Emperor's form. Explain. Maya took a deep breath. This was the tricky part. Humanity didn't achieve faster-than-light travel on our own, she said. We reverse-engineered it from a Void Hive scout ship that crashed in our solar system. In the process, we learned what they are, what they want, and why they keep coming back to our reality. She deactivated the holoprojector and returned it to her pocket. They're harvesters, Your Radiance. They convert matter and energy into something else. Something they need to sustain their civilization in whatever passes for space where they come from. And they've chosen this galaxy as their next feeding ground. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice held new harmonics. If what you say is true, why come here? Why warn us? Because we can't stop them alone, Maya said simply. We've held them off before, but never a swarm this size. We need the Empire's resources, your technology, your fleet. And in return, we offer our experience fighting them and the weapons we've developed specifically for this threat. Rainbow Dash made that wind chime hurricane sound again. This is absurd. Some primitive species claims to have fought off a mythical enemy, and we're supposed to— Maya's hand moved faster than any of the guards could track. The katana cleared its sheath with a whisper of well-oiled metal, its blade describing a perfect arc through the air. There was no hum of energy fields, no glow of exotic particles, just plain old Japanese steel, folded thousands of times by master craftsmen who had passed their skills down through generations. The blade stopped a millimeter from Rainbow Dash's crystalline neck. This primitive weapon, Maya said conversationally, is made from metals that resonate at exactly the right frequency to shatter Vexthalian crystal flesh. We figured that out about 10 minutes after first contact, though we decided not to mention it in the interest of diplomatic relations. She pulled the blade back slightly, letting it catch the light. It's also been quantum-enhanced to disrupt the dimensional frequency that Void Hive bodies operate on. One good hit, and they collapse back into their own reality. We've got about 1,000 of these aboard my ship, along with the specs to make more. Maya sheathed the katana in one smooth motion. So yes, I brought a knife to an energy weapon fight, because sometimes the old ways are the best ways, especially when you're dealing with enemies that exist partially outside normal space-time. The chamber was silent again, but this time the silence had a different quality. Less hostile, more contemplative. Finally, the Emperor spoke. You took an incredible risk coming here like this, Captain Rodriguez. If you are lying, the penalty would be severe. Maya nodded. I know. But if I'm telling the truth and we don't act now, there won't be a penalty, because there won't be an empire, or a humanity, or much of anything else in this galaxy. More patterns shifted in the Emperor's form. And if we agree to this alliance, what then? Then, Maya said, allowing herself a small smile, I introduce you to the real reason I came alone. She touched a control on her armor's wrist computer. Rodriguez to humanity's spite. Execute protocol Leroy Jenkins. Space rippled above the Imperial Palace as her ship dropped its quantum camouflage. The vessel was small by Imperial standards, barely a kilometer long, but its hull bristled with weapons that no one in the Empire had ever seen before. Weapons designed specifically to hurt things that, technically speaking, didn't fully exist in our universe. The guards' collective hum reached a pitch that probably shattered windows somewhere in the city below. A demonstration, then, the Emperor said, and Maya could have sworn there was amusement in those harmonics. Show us what humanity can do. Maya's smile widened. With pleasure, Your Radiance. Though you might want to have your guards step back. This could get a bit unprecedented. Rainbow Dash made a sound that might have been a groan. I am beginning to hate that word. Trust me, Maya said, unsheathing her katana once more, as her ship's quantum sensors detected the first traces of Void Hive scout particles in the upper atmosphere. You haven't seen anything yet. The blade caught the light, its quantum-enhanced edge humming with possibilities that shouldn't exist in normal space. Above, something that wasn't quite real began to tear its way into reality. Maya allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The guards weren't laughing anymore, but soon they'd learned something that the Void Hive had learned 3 centuries ago. When humanity says, "Hold my beer and watch this," the universe had better pay attention. Because what came next was usually either brilliant, insane, or some unprecedented combination of both. Just the way we liked it. The first Void Hive scout materialized exactly where Maya's quantum calculations had predicted, directly above the Imperial Palace's main energy collection array. It looked like someone had taken a piece of deep space, folded it through dimensions that shouldn't exist, and then taught it to hate everything that operated according to normal physics. Well, Maya said, checking the readings on her armor's displays. They're right on schedule. Your Radiance, I suggest we move this party somewhere with better tactical positioning. The Emperor's geometric form pulsed with new patterns. The Imperial Palace is the most heavily defended structure in the galaxy. Yes, Maya agreed. Against threats that exist entirely in our universe. But she gestured at her wrist display, which now showed multiple quantum anomalies forming throughout the capital city's upper atmosphere. These guys don't play by those rules. As if to prove her point, the first scout ship simply ignored the palace's energy shields, passing through them as if they weren't there. Which, from the Void Hive's perspective, they might as well not have been. Rainbow Dash and his fellow guards moved to surround the Emperor's throne, their crystalline bodies resonating with combat frequencies. Maya had to give them credit. They might be arrogant, but they took their duties seriously. Humanity's spite, status report, Maya called into her comm. Multiple bogies incoming, Cap, replied Lieutenant Raj Kumar, her tactical officer. Reading 12 scouts and what looks like 2 harvesters. Want us to light them up? Maya glanced at the Emperor. Your Radiance, permission to demonstrate our defensive capabilities? The geometric patterns shifted in what might have been concern. The palace's defensive grid won't even scratch them, Maya finished. Trust me, you're going to want to see this. After a moment that felt much longer than it probably was, the Emperor's form pulsed with affirmation. Proceed. Maya's grin would have made a shark think twice. Kumar, execute pattern Delta 7. Let's show them why you don't crash reality-bending parties without an invitation. Aye aye, Cap. Spinning up the quantum disruptors now. The guards watched in what Maya assumed was confusion, as nothing appeared to happen. Then one of the scout ships simply stopped existing. Not with an explosion or a dramatic light show. It simply folded back into whatever passed for space in its home dimension, leaving not so much as a particle of debris behind. What? Rainbow Dash's voice modulator crackled with static. What did you do? Quantum frequency manipulation, Maya explained, watching as her ship methodically picked off the remaining scouts. We basically convinced small portions of our space to vibrate at frequencies that their partial existence can't handle. Pop goes the eldritch horror. The Emperor's form had shifted into patterns Maya hadn't seen before. This technology, it could revolutionize our entire understanding of spatial mechanics. That's not even the cool part, Maya said, unslinging her katana as the 2 harvester ships began their approach. Watch this. She touched another control on her wrist computer, and the blade began to hum with frequencies that made the guards take several steps back. The sound wasn't just in normal space, it resonated through quantum dimensions that most species couldn't even perceive. One of the harvesters, apparently deciding that whatever was making that sound needed to stop existing immediately, altered its course to head directly for the palace's audience chamber. Its surface rippled with patterns that hurt the mind to look at, reality warping around it like cloth in a storm. Maya took a stance that would have made her old kendo instructor proud. Your Radiance, you might want to have your guards step back a bit further. This could get weird. Define weird, Rainbow Dash demanded, even as he and his fellow guards complied. Ever seen what happens when you try to exist in 15 dimensions at once, and suddenly find out that 14 of them don't want you there anymore? Before any of the guards could respond, the harvester ship smashed through the chamber's ceiling. Or rather, it smashed through several versions of the ceiling that existed in different dimensional frequencies. Debris that both was and wasn't there rained down around them. Maya's blade moved in patterns that shouldn't have been possible in normal space. The quantum frequencies it generated reached out across dimensions, finding the loose threads in the fabric of reality that the Void Hive used to maintain their partial existence in our universe. And then she pulled those threads. The harvester unraveled. There was no other word for it. Its surface patterns twisted in on themselves, its very substance trying to exist in too many places at once. Maya kept moving, her blade describing arcs that left traces in dimensions most species couldn't even name. When it was over, the harvester was gone. Not destroyed, but forcibly ejected back into its home dimension. The only evidence it had ever been there was a hole in the ceiling that seemed to have trouble deciding exactly how many dimensions it existed in. Rainbow Dash made a sound like a crystal xylophone having an existential crisis. That was unprecedented? Maya suggested, unable to resist. I was going to say terrifying, but yes, that too. The Emperor's form had shifted into patterns that somehow managed to convey both shock and intense interest. You said there were thousands of these weapons aboard your ship? Maya nodded, keeping one eye on her tactical display as humanity's spite engaged the second harvester, along with the specs to make more. We've also got designs for ship-mounted versions, area denial systems, and these neat little grenades that... She was cut off by a sound that shook the very fabric of space-time. The remaining harvester had decided to try a different approach, attempting to convert the palace's entire quantum probability field into something more suitable for its kind of existence. Oh, no you don't, Maya muttered, reaching into one of her armor's pouches. She pulled out what looked like a snow globe filled with swirling darkness. Hey Sparkles, remember how I said we had grenades? Rainbow Dash's crystalline body vibrated with what might have been resigned acceptance. Let me guess. Unprecedented? Now you're getting it. Maya twisted the globe's base and tossed it through the dimensional tears left by the first harvester. Fire in the hole, multiple holes, in multiple dimensions! The device detonated, or perhaps anti-detonated. It was hard to tell with quantum weapons. The effect, however, was unmistakable. The harvester's attempt to rewrite local reality backfired spectacularly, as the grenade forced everything within its radius to exist in purely normal space-time for a fraction of a second. The result was rather like trying to force a 12-dimensional object to exist in only 3 dimensions. Messy, physically improbable, and generally bad for everyone involved. When reality finished reasserting itself, the second harvester was gone, leaving behind only a faint smell of burned mathematics, and what Maya swore was the quantum equivalent of a sheepish apology. Well, she said into the silence that followed. That was fun. But the thing about Void Hive scouts and harvesters is that they're just the warm-up act. The real show usually starts about... She checked her quantum readings. Now. As if on cue, her tactical display lit up with warnings. Something massive was beginning to emerge from higher dimensions, its very presence causing local space-time to develop a nervous tick. Maya turned to the Emperor, whose geometric patterns had taken on an intensity she hadn't seen before. So, Your Radiance, about that alliance. The Emperor's response was interrupted by the arrival of what Maya privately thought of as a Void Hive capital ship, though that term was about as accurate as calling a supernova a warm day. The thing that appeared above the Imperial capital defied description in any language that operated in normal space-time. Maya's katana hummed with anticipation as she pulled up the quantum combat protocols she'd helped develop for exactly this situation. Don't suppose any of you fine gentlemen would like to learn how to fence across 5 dimensions? Rainbow Dash's crystalline body vibrated with what might have been a sigh. Will it be unprecedented? Oh yeah. Maya grinned as humanity's spite began transmitting quantum weapon specs to the Imperial defense grid. But trust me, that's exactly what you want when you're dealing with these guys. Above them, reality began to bend in ways that would have made Einstein reach for a drink. But Maya wasn't worried. After all, humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment. And if there was one thing humans did better than anyone else in the galaxy, It was taking impossible situations and turning them into really good stories to tell over drinks later. Assuming, of course, that they survived the next few hours. But hey, that was half the fun. The Void Hive capital ship, if you could call something that existed in more dimensions than it didn't a ship, began what Maya's training had taught her to recognize as a standard reality conversion sequence. The space around it started to bubble with quantum possibilities, each one less friendly to normal matter than the last. "Kumar," Maya called into her comm. "Execute Protocol Schrodinger's middle finger." "Seriously, Cap?" Her tactical officer's voice carried equal parts excitement and concern. "We haven't field-tested that one yet. No time like the present. Besides," she glanced at Rainbow Dash and his fellow guards, who were watching the dimensional distortions with what she assumed was the crystalline equivalent of horror. "I promised our new friends something unprecedented." The Emperor's geometric form pulsed with what might have been curiosity. "What exactly does this protocol entail?" Maya's grin was all teeth. "Ever wonder what happens when you force a quantum superposition to resolve in all possible states simultaneously?" "That's..." Rainbow Dash's voice modulator crackled. "That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical," Maya finished. "Unless you happen to have spent the last century figuring out how to harvest energy from quantum probability collapses. Speaking of which..." She checked her tactical display. "Kumar, status?" "Quantum probability drive is at 98% capacity, Cap. Ready to make the laws of physics cry on your mark." The Void Hive ship had begun to emit patterns that made Maya's quantum sensors scream warnings. They were about to attempt a large-scale conversion of local spacetime, turning it into something more suitable for their kind of existence. Which would, incidentally, be rather uncomfortable for anyone who enjoyed existing in only 3 spatial dimensions. "Your Radiance," Maya said, keeping her voice casual despite the urgency of the situation. "I don't suppose the palace has some kind of secure bunker? Preferably one that can handle some creative interpretations of reality?" The Emperor's patterns shifted in what might have been agreement. A section of the floor smoothly retracted, revealing a spiral staircase that seemed to be made of solid light. "A quantum-shielded refuge," he explained, "though I doubt its effectiveness against these entities." "Don't worry," Maya said as she ushered the Emperor and his guards toward the stairs. "That's what we're here for. Kumar, light it up." Above the city, humanity's spite began to glow with energies that shouldn't exist in normal space. The quantum probability drive, humanity's greatest achievement in making physics regret its life choices, spun up to full power. The principle was simple, really. The Void Hive existed partially outside normal space-time, using quantum uncertainty to maintain their presence in our reality. So humanity had developed a weapon that took quantum uncertainty to its logical extreme. By forcing every quantum possibility in a given area to resolve simultaneously, they could essentially create a zone where reality itself became so confused that even the Void Hive couldn't maintain their partial existence. The capital ship seemed to sense what was coming. It tried to accelerate its conversion sequence, reality-warping tendrils reaching out toward the palace. "Not today, Squiddy," Maya muttered, unslinging her katana once more. The blade's quantum frequencies synchronized with the energy building in her ship's drive, creating a localized bubble of probability chaos around the palace. The effect was interesting. Reality stuttered, hiccuped, and briefly considered taking up interpretive dance as a career. The Void Hive ship found itself trying to exist in every possible quantum state at once, which was rather like trying to wear every outfit in your closet simultaneously. Theoretically possible, but really not recommended. "Probability cascade reaching critical mass," Kumar reported, his voice tight with concentration. 3, 2, 1. Maya's blade described an arc that existed in several probability states at once. "Now!" The quantum probability drive released its built-up energy in a wave that made causality itself throw up its hands and take a coffee break. For a brief, glorious moment, everything within a 10-kilometer radius existed in all possible quantum states simultaneously. The Void Hive ship, already struggling with partial existence in our reality, found this development particularly problematic. It's hard to maintain your cosmic horror aesthetic when you're simultaneously existing and not existing in every possible way. The result was spectacular in a way that defied conventional physics, logic, and several other fundamental principles that the universe generally preferred to maintain. When reality finally sorted itself out, after what felt like both an instant and an eternity, the capital ship was gone, leaving behind only a faint impression in higher dimensions that Maya's quantum sensors interpreted as the equivalent of what the actual, untranslatable Void Hive expletive. Rainbow Dash, who along with the other guards had watched the entire display from the relative safety of the quantum bunker, made a sound like wind chimes having an existential crisis.
That was... If you say unprecedented, I win today's betting pool, Maya interrupted, checking her tactical readings.
The probability cascade had worked better than their simulations had predicted, though she noticed some interesting anomalies in the quantum residue that her science team would probably have fun analyzing later. The Emperor's geometric patterns had taken on new configurations that Maya's cultural database didn't even try to interpret.
Your species, he said finally, has a unique approach to problem solving.
That's one way to put it, Maya agreed, helping Rainbow dash up after the guard had apparently forgotten that gravity was supposed to be consistent in normal space-time. We prefer to think of it as creative applications of experimental physics. You turned local reality into quantum soup, one of the other guards pointed out, their crystalline form still vibrating with residual probability fluctuations.
Yeah, but it worked, didn't it? Maya grinned as she checked in with her ship.
Kumar, what's the status on our friendly neighborhood reality benders? Reading multiple quantum signature retreats, Cap. Looks like they didn't appreciate our little probability trick, though. He paused. We're picking up some unusual patterns in the higher dimensions. Might be calling for reinforcements. Maya nodded.
She'd expected as much.
The Void Hive weren't used to prey that could fight back effectively. This would either convince them to find easier hunting grounds or... Your Radiance, she said, turning to the Emperor. I hate to rush diplomatic negotiations, but we might want to discuss that alliance sooner rather than later. Because if I'm reading these quantum signatures correctly, the Void Hive just went from irritated to deeply offended, and they're probably going to want to express their displeasure in ways that involve creative applications of non-Euclidean geometry. The Emperor's patterns shifted in what might have been alarm.
How much time do we have? Maya consulted her quantum readings. Based on their typical response patterns, I'd say about 6 hours before they bring in the heavy artillery. And trust me, you haven't seen weird until you've watched them try to convert an entire star system into quantum probability fields.
You've seen this before? Rainbow Dash asked, his voice modulator carrying tones of both disbelief and growing respect. Alpha Centauri, Maya confirmed. 2218. Humanity's first major engagement with a Void Hive fleet. We lost 3 moons and had to explain to our physics department why causality took a 2-week vacation in the outer solar system. She smiled at the memory. But we learned a lot. Mostly about how to make reality itself tell the Void Hive to go home and rethink their life choices. The Emperor's geometric patterns pulsed with decision. Very well, Captain Rodriguez. You shall have your alliance. The Empire will commit its resources to this fight, though I suspect we have much to learn about your methods of warfare. Don't worry, Maya said, already pulling up the quantum weapon specs on her tactical display. We've got crash courses in 5-dimensional combat tactics, non-Euclidean battlefield navigation, and what we like to call practical applications of improbable physics. Though I should warn you, the physics department's teaching methods can be a bit unprecedented, Rainbow Dash suggested dryly. Maya laughed. I was going to say experimental, but yeah, that too. Now, who wants to learn how to fence in 11 dimensions while calculating quantum probability fields in their head? The guards exchanged looks that somehow managed to convey both resignation and anticipation. Above them, reality continued to settle back into its usual patterns, though Maya's sensors detected lingering quantum distortions that suggested the Void Hive wouldn't stay gone for long. But that was fine. After all, humanity had spent centuries preparing for this fight. And now, with the Empire's resources backing them up, things were about to get really interesting. Maya checked her katana's quantum frequency settings and grinned. The Void Hive thought they could just waltz into this galaxy and start converting reality to suit their needs. Time to teach them why humans had a reputation for making the impossible not just possible, but probable, even if it meant breaking physics along the way. The end,